landlord practically threw the keys at me, eager to be done with it. At the time, I thought I'd scored. Now, I realize I should have questioned why he was in such a hurry. My hands grip the edges of a heavy cardboard box, wobbling slightly as I adjust my grip. Each step swayed gently as I cross the threshold into the apartment. The door creaks, long and drawn out, as it opens. My shoes scrape against the gritty, dusty wooden floor. The cardboard box rustles softly in my arms. Overhead, the faint buzz of a flickering fluorescent light hums, uneven and tired. The first thing that hit me was the smell. Damp wood mildew and something sharp, almost metallic. It wasn't welcoming, but I didn't care. I needed to move on. I lower the box onto the scuffed floor and straighten up, rubbing my hands together. My eyes sweep the room. Peeling wallpaper hangs limply in jagged strips like it's given up. The ceiling sags slightly in one corner, stained yellow from water damage. The window is cracked, a thin spiderweb fracture letting in a faint, cold draft. The drip of a leaky faucet echoes faintly from somewhere, irregular and annoying. The flicker of the fluorescent light becomes a sharp buzz, then goes quiet for a beat before starting again. It was a dump, sure. The kind of place you'd see on a photo for a renovation show. The walls seemed to lean inward slightly, like they'd been holding in secrets for too long. And the air, it was thick, almost heavy, carrying that faint tang of decay. Still, I convinced myself it was fine. I needed it to be fine. My gaze falls on a door in the corner. It stands apart from everything else. The wood is darker, rich and heavy, with an ornate handle dulled by time. The doorframe doesn't quite fit. The edges are uneven, like it was forced into a space it didn't belong. A low, almost imperceptible hum begins to build, faintly vibrating in the background as I stare at the door. Except for that door, it didn't match the rest of the apartment. It was too dark, too polished, like it came from a different place, a different time. Something about it felt wrong, as if it wasn't supposed to be here. The longer I looked at it, the more the room seemed to tilt, like the door was pulling everything toward it, including me. I step closer, my shadow stretching long across the floor as the light flickers overhead. My hand reaches out slowly, fingers trembling slightly as they brush against the cold, metallic knob. The knob creaks softly as I twist it, the sound sharp and grating in the stillness. A loud clunk follows as the lock refuses to budge. The hum spikes, growing louder for a moment before fading into silence. I asked the landlord about it when I moved in. He brushed it off, said it was just a closet, the lock jammed for years. But his voice, it was too quick, too rehearsed. He wouldn't even meet my eyes when he said it. I didn't press him, but I should have. I should have asked more questions. I take a step back, still staring at the door. The light around it seems to dim, as though the shadows are growing thicker, heavier. My chest tightens, and I feel a chill run down my spine. A faint knock echoes from behind the door. It's soft, almost timid, but it shouldn't be there. My breath catches as the sound fades into silence again. I told myself it was nothing, just a knock. Maybe my imagination, maybe the old wood settling. But deep down I knew better. That door wasn't just part of the apartment. It was something else, something waiting. I should have left right then. But I didn't. I stayed. And that was the biggest mistake of my life. My belongings slowly fill the space. Boxes disappear, furniture shifts, but the door in the corner never moves. It looms, a dark, constant presence. A faint, persistent hum underscores the ambient sounds of the apartment. It's barely noticeable at first, but grows with the passing days. At first, I tried to ignore it. I focused on unpacking, settling in. But no matter what I did, the door was always there, watching, waiting. Then I started noticing things. Small at first, easy to brush off. Like how the room stayed cold, no matter how high I cranked the heat. I twist the thermostat dial, my fingers shaking slightly. The frost creeping along the edges of the window, My breath is visible in the supposedly warm air. A faint tapping begins, soft and rhythmic. It echoes faintly from the direction of the door, and the noises. Every night, just as I was about to fall asleep, I'd hear it. A faint tapping. I told myself it was just the pipes. Old apartments always have quirks. But deep down, I knew better. Then, one night it got worse. I had a dream, or at least, I think it was a dream. I stand in the dim-lit hallway outside my bedroom, staring at the closed door in front of me. My hand reaches out, trembling to open it. A faint creak as the door opens, revealing a familiar room. The same cold air, the same flickering light casting shadows that crawl along the walls like living things. This isn't real. This isn't real. I stepped inside, even though every instinct screamed at me not to. The shadows moved, twisting along the walls, stretching toward me like they knew I was there. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. The shadows surge forward, reaching for me as the light flickers violently, gasping for air. I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding in my chest. But the dream didn't feel like a dream. It felt real, too real. I grabbed my coat and head out, slamming the apartment door shut behind me, as though leaving would silence the unease. I decided to get out, clear my head. A cafe across town seemed like the perfect escape. But when I went to the bathroom, I stopped cold. It's unmistakable. The same heavy dark wood, the same worn handle, the same faint light flickering beneath it. No, it can't be. I wanted to open it. I needed to know, but my legs wouldn't move. My chest tightened, and all I could hear was my own heartbeat, thundering in my ears. Then I ran. I didn't care if anyone stared. I had to get out of there, like my life depended on it. I burst out of the cafe, nearly colliding with someone on the sidewalk. My pale face, wide eyes darting nervously as I glance back at the cafe door. The hum fades, replaced by the sound of traffic and muffled chatter. But the tapping still echoes faintly in my head. That's when I realized it wasn't just the apartment. It was the door. And no matter where I went, it wasn't going to let me go. I couldn't stay there anymore. The tapping, the dreams, the way the shadows moved when they shouldn't. It was too much. I didn't care about the lease or losing my deposit. I just needed to leave. I found a place across the city, far enough away to make me feel safe. At least, that's what I thought. The sunlight streams through the window as I set my bags down. The space feels bright, normal, and safe. For the first time in weeks, I exhale deeply and sit on the edge of the bed. The distant hum of city life outside, cars honking, footsteps on the pavement, and the occasional muffled laugh. It felt like a fresh start. No cold air, no shadows, no door that didn't belong. For the first time in weeks, I felt okay. But that feeling didn't last. The room is dark, lit only by faint moonlight seeping through the blinds. A faint tap echoes in the silence. It's soft at first, then grows louder, sharper. My breath catches as the sound pulls me awake. My stomach dropped. I wanted to believe it wasn't real, that I was still dreaming. But the cold air was real, the tapping was real, and that door, it was real. No, you're not here. You can't be here. The tapping stops abruptly, replaced by silence so deep it presses against my ears. Then, faintly, a voice whispers. Soft, almost kind, but undeniably eerie.
Come in.
The door handle jerks violently, twisting on its own. The light overhead flickers, plunging the room into darkness before snapping back on. The creak of wood, the metallic grind of the lock shifting as the handle moves, slow and deliberate. I couldn't take it anymore. The fear, the waiting, it was suffocating. If it wanted me to come in, fine. I'd end this, one way or another. I grab a hammer from a nearby box and step toward the door. My breaths come in shallow gasps, my body shaking slightly with each step. All right, let's see what you want. The hammer smashes into the lock with a deafening clang. Metal groans and snaps. The door creaks open, revealing nothing but pitch black darkness beyond. As I step inside, the room beyond is impossibly vast, the walls and floor disappearing into an endless void. My footsteps echo unnaturally as I walk forward. The silence is heavy, broken only by the faint sound of my breathing. The room was empty. No furniture, no walls, just a floor that stretched into nothingness. The air was colder here, dense and suffocating. It felt like the void itself was pressing against me. I turned to leave, but the door is gone, showing nothing but black where the door should be. My breaths quicken, panic setting in. The sound of wind rushes through the space, low and eerie, carrying faint whispers that grow louder and more chaotic. No, where's the door? Where is it? Let me out! The whispers coalesce into shadows that move across the floor, crawling toward me. The shadows envelop everything. A deep, echoing thud, followed by silence. The room didn't just want me to come in. It wanted me to stay. I watched a new tenant, a young man with tired eyes, carrying boxes into my old apartment. The light outside is dim, a cloudy evening casting long, creeping shadows. From this strange, dark space, I can only observe the muffled rustle of cardboard and the dull thud of boxes being set down. A faint footsteps echo down the hall as the tenant moves in. I don't know how long I've been here. Days. Years. Time doesn't exist in this place, not in the way it used to. All I know is, I'm not alone. The room doesn't just take people. It waits, watches, and lures. It's taken others before me, and now it's found someone else. The guy who moved into my old apartment yesterday. From my vantage point, I see the tenant pause, his head tilting slightly. He's looking toward the corner of the room. The door. His hesitant steps as he approaches it, a look of unease crossing his face. The faint tapping begins. Soft at first, then growing slightly louder, more leave-in ghost assistant. The sound echoes unnaturally, resonating deeper than it should. It always starts with the tapping. Quiet at first, almost gentle, like it's testing. But the sound doesn't stop. It never stops. That's how it begins. That's how it began for me. The tenant leans closer to the door, his hand reaching for the knob. The light flickers, casting jagged shadows across the room. My perspective shifts. I'm right behind him, watching his every move. A low hum builds, vibrating through the air, layered with the rhythmic tapping. My breath catches in my throat, the sound so familiar it makes my chest ache. I want to scream, to warn him, to tell him to stop, to run, but no one ever listens. They always think it's just an old door, a curiosity waiting to be solved. They don't understand. It isn't just a door, it's a trap. And once the room finds you, it never lets go. The tenant jerks his hand back suddenly, as if the doorknob burned him. He stares at it for a long moment before shaking his head and walking away. The door dark and heavy, its surface seeming to pulse faintly. I thought I could escape. I thought moving would save me. But you can't outrun something like this. It's not just in the apartment. It's in me, in my mind. It doesn't matter how far you go. Once the room chooses you, it doesn't stop. Not until it takes everything. My view pulls back, fading into shadow. The tenant is no longer visible, but the door is always there. The tapping grows louder, more erratic. A faint whisper layers over it. Words that are just out of reach. So if you ever find yourself with a door that doesn't belong, don't open it. Don't even try. Ignore it. Leave. Because if you don't, once the room finds you, it never lets go.